Welcome to MasterCAM course. In that lecture we're gonna talk about and the 5-axis and the machining. As you can see here, I created some 5-axis multi-surface toolpath. Okay, let's see and what kind of toolpath we have. I'm gonna use the backload simulation here. Okay, so this is the flat end mill, as you can see. Okay, I'm gonna use 4-axis toolpath approach, and then I can use my step over approach here. This is my step over approach. Yeah, actually this is some roughing process, and then we can repeat that process to reach my surface, this surface. Okay, so okay, let's try to understand what is our multi-axis toolpath parallel and properties. Okay, I'm gonna start with the toolpath type. When I am click on the toolpath type, this is actually 2 options we have here, and pattern and application approach. We are on the pattern approach right now. If I am click on the application, we're gonna see that's kind of toolpaths here. When I am click here, this is pattern approach, and then we're gonna see the parallel approach here. It's selected as a parallel, and then I can turn to the tool. So I created 10 millimeters and flat mill here, and then actually I can turn to holder. This is my holder, and then I'm gonna focus on actually cut pattern options. Okay, this is the cut pattern options. This is actually according to my toolpath type, that part is gonna change. So we're gonna see parallel to actually curves, surface and angle. There are 3 options here. I select the angle options for my case, and then we're gonna see my actually, okay, let me cancel that. Oops, sorry. Okay, when I am click here, this is my select machining angles options here. This is my machining angles because we select the angle here. If I am clicking surface, it's gonna change like this. If I am clicking curve, it's gonna be like this. When I am click angle approach, so I need to select my machining angles here. Okay, so I can use escape button right now. Okay, and then actually we can write our machining angle in the X and Y axis and machining angle in the Z axis. This is also important. Let me cancel that and turn back the default parameters here. So this is the machining angle X and Y axis. Okay, when I am turned to X and Y axis here, I'm gonna use the right mouse button and top view. Okay, this is the X and Y axis. We can see here. According to X and Y axis, we're gonna use actually 0 degree. Machining angle in the Z axis, we're gonna see the 90 degree. Okay, we can also click here to make that process constant Z options. or we can also use the parallel options. Okay, at that case it selected parallel options here. When I am click parallel options, you're gonna see that's kind of X, Y, machining angle 0, and machining angle in the Z axis gonna turn to 90 degree. After that I can turn to the drive surface. I need to click here to be able to select my drive surface. This is my drive surface, one surface we have to create my toolpath. Drive surface is 1. We can also write here machining geometry is offset here. Okay, we can offset, for example, 0.25 millimeter. And then we can decide our area, and this is actually quite important. If you intend to limit your the cutting area, you can organize that area. As a type, we can select and the 3 options here. So I'm gonna click here, fully avoided cuts at exact edges. Okay, this is also important. Surface quality, cut tolerance 0.01. This is my step over. That's part also important. If you intend to create your 5-axis toolpath, so most of the time I prefer to use the maximum step over and the 5 or 10 millimeters, because while we are calculating our toolpath, it's gonna most of the time it takes a huge amount of time, so I don't want to spend my time while my organizing the toolpath. After that I decided that all parameters is okay, and then turn to here, and then I can write my real step over. And the first and second step I try to write here a huge amount of values, because while we are calculating our toolpath it takes the time, so I don't want that. So that's why I prefer to use the 5 or 10 millimeters if it is possible, of course. When I am turned here, this is the sorting options. We can also see some area here. This is the sorting options. I prefer to use one way, and we can also see the cut order is a standard cut order. You can also see the different explanation here. Okay, it is quite clear. Cut order is a standard. We can start from some edge and keep going on that way, or we can see the from center away, or we can also see the from outside the center options. Okay, this is my the direction for one-way machining. This is the one way, and this is my one-way machining. Okay, so okay, let's try to understand the tool axis control. Tool axis control is also quite important because we are working on the 5-axis machining. So it means that actually my tool can be on some point, okay, with the different possibility. For example, I can be on X0, Y0 and Z0 position. It's okay. And center of my tool on that point, but my tool axis can be different, A and B or B and C. It's not important. If you have 4 axes, you need to be careful about your C axis, or if you have the 5-axis machining, you also need to be careful about your B or C position. Okay, you can be actually possibility be on X and Y and Z axis, so you need to be careful about your tool axis control. Okay, so when to limit my possibility, actually I can write here 4-axis approach here. If I am selecting the 5-axis, it means that we have B and C. Okay, and yeah, of course, beside X, Y, and Z axis. But I'm gonna turn to here 4-axis. Okay, when I am click on the 4-axis, it means that I limit my axis. So after that, I write here, this is my maximum angle step. This is also some limitation. And we can also see the tool axis control. Tool axis control is also important. So maybe, and we should draw some pictures here. Maybe this is my tool. Okay. My tool is here. There is some point here, X, Y, and Z axis. My tool can be and like this, or it's also possible to create that kind of tool. Is that right? Maybe we should use the transform options to rotate it. Okay. Maybe this is my tool. Okay. Maybe this is my tool position, or maybe this is my tool position. Okay, we need to connect my tool axis with some point or some limitations geometry in our and on our product. This is quite important. So that's why we need to be careful about tool axis control. Okay, this is my tool, and this is gonna be my tool axis. Oops, let me check that again. This is my tool axis, so I need to connect that tool axis with my product entities. Okay, I can click here, and then that's why it's a tool axis control. I prefer to use rotated around axis. So it means that when I am turned to cut button, I selected some face. Just remember that drive surface is selected. So according to my drive surface, my tool axis control can be rotated around this axis. So this is my limitation. But actually this is not enough. We also need to give some degree here. Which degree we need to stay on that surface? This is the 90 degree. Which axis? X axis. So this is actually limitation for our axis. You can see that this is the X axis and 90 degree. Okay, so that part is quite important. So you can see that we are on the space. Actually we can be and any X, Y, and Z coordinate, but we can also use the some teeth degree. We can also organize our B and C or only 4 axis. We need to limit our possibility. So that's why we are organizing that stuff. Tool axis control, and you need to look at tool axis control approach on that way. Okay. So after that we can turn to the LinkedIn, and we can also jump in the actually and the roughing process. We can also activate the roughing process to repeat and that action again and again. And what can I say about here? Yeah, actually, and when we turn to cut button, yeah, actually I can, as a summary, I can say that toolpath type, when you select your toolpath type, all that stuff is organized. Okay, after that process you need to focus on the cut button and tool axis control. And the cut button process, we decided our cutting parameters, but when we turn to tool axis control, we need to organize our tool axis because we have actually finite possibility. So we need to limit our tool axis. So this is the main approach for 5-axis. Don't forget to, and that's point of view while you are creating your 5-axis. So when we turn here as a cut button, you can see that step over calculation. We can also see that changing tolerance is as a 1. This is my actually and point to point distance maybe. And then we can also see the tool diameter. Tool diameter is gonna calculate it according to my tool diameter. This is my step over. Actually, this is the smaller than, yeah, actually we have some and the gaps here, as you can see here. If and this gaps is and smaller than the tool diameter 20%, you can create some smoothing and the transaction here. It means that, okay. We can also see that stuff on and the 3-axis and the toolpath. Okay, grab settings, maybe you can remember that. Anyway, okay, I think that's okay for that part. I can turn to and top view again, and I can delete the tool here, and then we can recalculate our toolpath and see our toolpath simulation. Okay, and what else can I say about here? This is the cut button, and this part is quite important. We have decided the cutting pattern method here parallel to angle, and then we can click here parallel options. Okay, don't forget that stuff. Or we can also click here, actually select machine angles, that's also some possibility, and then drive surface, and then your area, and then your cutting method, one way or and zigzag or spiral approach. When we select in the one way here, actually this is the standard cut order selected, and we can also organize our step over. This is my maximum step over here as a 5 mm. Maybe we should make them 10, and recalculate our toolpath, and we're gonna see that that's gonna change like this. Okay, so what else can be seen here? Yeah, actually this is the one way. Let's try the spiral approach here. I'm gonna turn to spiral. When I am turned to one way to and the spiral, as you can see here, if you click one way, you need to select your cut order and or direction for the one way machining. If I am clicking here, actually that is not can be seen here. I can click the spiral approach here and calculate it, so we cannot see any transaction movement here. Okay, this is the spiral. Maybe that part is better than the one way. Okay, it's up to you, you can decide that. But can you see here, I can easily check all parameters. Why I can be able to do that? Because our calculation time is quite enough for us, because I make my step over 10. If I am making 0.1, so and changing my cutting method, so it's gonna time. Like if I am clicking here, That's gonna be and maybe 10 or 15 minutes. So I don't want that. Okay, I can click here. It's a 10 and calculate it easily, and then checks my and the parameters, checks my and the toolpaths. After that everything seems fine. I can turn here and then I can change my maximum step over. Exactly what I want. Okay, and yeah, of course, and we can also see here, here, and here. If I am clicking spiral approach here, advanced options for spiral machining is activated, and we can also change that, and that's little and approach here. If this is the close, first contour or last contour, we can also create and first contour and last contour. Can you see that? I created toolpath for the last contour and first contour. That's perfect, by the way. I have just realized that, and that's advanced and parameters. Okay, cool. And MasterCAM is improving for and each service spec or maintenance. Okay, cool. And what else can I say about the tool axis? Let's turn to tool axis. We have 3 axis and 4 axis and 5 axis approach, and the maximum angle step is important. And we can also see the tool axis approach here. We can limit our tool by rotating around axis. We can also select from chain. For example, it's also possible to create some and the line on the center of that and cylinder. Maybe we have here wireframe. Yeah, that's chain can be also selected. Okay, let me check that. I can copy that toolpath and paste it here. Okay, I can turn to parameters. Okay, and tool axis control, I can turn back here, and then I can click from. Okay, let me check my tool first. I can create new one, and it can be ball nose right now. Maybe we should use that stuff for our finishing after and the 10 millimeters flat mill. Okay, I can turn to the tool axis. This is the 4 axis. By my axis control, gonna turn to, and from chain, rotated around axis is already selected. Actually, I can click to chain. Okay, not from chain. This must be to chain. Okay, we can see the some chain here, and then my tool axis gonna connect it with that chain. Okay, so this is the perfect explanation actually. Okay, when I select and the to chain, this is activated. I need to select my chain. So we're gonna rotate around this axis. Okay, we can also change the teeth angle here, but I don't want that. Yes, that's perfect. Okay, this is maybe better for actually finishing process. Can you see that? This is the 2 curve options. Yeah, actually when I am focused on the 5 axis machining, okay, this is my and the 20 years experience maybe. When I am focused on the 5 axis machining, actually this is the most important parameters for and in comparison to other parameters. Actually, this is the tool axis control. if you decide the best way according to your process, actually you have done. Okay, you don't need to worry about the cut pattern and the other parameters is here. Okay, you can organize it, you can change it, it's not so important. But when we turn here, it's a tool axis and select two chain options. This is the two chain. For example, this is the 2 point, but we don't want that. And our process is about two chain options. So I can click here and this is already selected. And then this is the only parameters we change. And then you're gonna see that we have totally different toolpath here. Of course, I can also change my tool. By the way, I think that's enough, and 25 minutes. Okay, I really appreciated your interest. If you have any question, don't hesitate to ask a question. After your question, I can try to understand that, and then maybe if it is possible, I try to explain that and the key, that clue to the other and the community members. Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciated your interest. Welcome to the MasterCAM courses. In that lecture, we're gonna talk about surface and multi-axis toolpath. Okay, I'm gonna click here. This is my toolpath type, pattern, and multi-surface toolpath. Okay, when I am click here, we can also see some examples to understand what kind of toolpath we're gonna get. After that, I can turn to the tool section to be organize my tool. This is my tool, 10 mm flat end mill. After that, I can turn to the cut pattern. When I am click on the cut pattern, I need to decide my pattern options. My pattern options can be surface, cylinder, square, and the box. Okay, when I am look at here, I can see that surface is suitable for us. So I can turn to the suitable options here, and then I can decide that my cutting method. My cutting method can be zigzag and one way or spiral. I decided to use the zigzag method. After that, we can also decide our compensation type calculated by computer, and then we're gonna be on the left side or my surface or my chain. After that, of course, if you click here, this is surface. One surface is selected, can be seen here. This is my surface. Okay, this is selected. And then we can turn to here. This is the distance amount, 0.2, to be able to decide that my vector actually, and then my cut tolerance. We can also see our follow parameters here. We can also change our cutting direction like this. We can also change our actually step direction. All of them is possible to organize by clicking flow parameters. After that, this is the cut parameters. After that, I need to turn to tool axis control. Tool axis control, too important, because as you remember that I also try to mention about that the previous lecture. We have actually infinite and the possibility here while we are using the X, Y, and Z coordinate, but we also have to limit our B or C axis. So that's why we need to tool axis control to limit our possibility. So This is the output format actually. When I am turned to tool axis control, I need to decide that my tool axis control actually it can be pattern, surface, plane, from point, to point, chain, or boundary. I decided to use the pattern surface here. So this is my cut pattern. Okay, this is my drive surface. This is my pattern options. When I am turned here, I need to decide that my tool axis control. When I am turned here, I also, according to my tool axis method, I need to decide that my pattern surface. Okay, this is my pattern surface. This is my output format. My output format can be 4 axis or 5 axis. And then I need to decide that my rotary axis. According to my process actually, this is Z axis, this is X, and this is the Y axis. So when I am turned here, I'm gonna select X axis to my backplot rotary axis. And then we can start with the lead and angle. We can also decide that the side teeth angle. Of course, according to my pattern surface, I can also reorganize and that 2 degree. Maybe we should also think that this is the XZ axis. This is the XZ axis, maybe here, and this is the YZ axis. This is the XZ degree, this is the YZ degree. After that, I can also write my incremental angle here and my tolerance. So that's it. After that, we're gonna see that's kind of tool path here. Yeah, actually you can also say that, okay, it's cool, but we can also use actually some Z constant toolpath. Yes, you are right. We can use Z-axis contour toolpath to be handled. That's kind of product that is easy for us. Let me turn back to view. Yeah, that's kind of product. It's easy for us. We can also use the constant Z level toolpath, but as you can see here, we can be able to use flat end mill, and we can also get that product and in a short time in comparison to constant Z level operations. So that's also quite important. Of course, we are always and keep that stuff in our mind, and if it is possible, use the 3 axis. If it is not possible, turn to 4 axis. If this is not possible to handle 4 axis, turn to the 5 axis. That's correct. But we can also use that's approach. Instead of that approach, we can also need to think about our the cutting time. So if I am using the Z-axis constant, it's okay, but it's gonna take maybe 1 or 2 hours. But when we turn to here, it's gonna take 5 or 6 minutes, because we can easily be able to use the flat end mill here, and then we can easily handle that product. Okay, when I am turned here as a tool axis control, we can also, at that point actually, let me turn to cut pattern here. We can also turn to actually cylinder approach here. Okay, this is my cylinder approach. When I am click here, so I can decide that my cylinder here. Okay, I can click here. You can see that this is activated right now. If I am turning to surface, this is also active right now. I can select here, and then I can select my surface. Okay, and then we can turn to the cylinder approach. At that point, I need to click here, and then we need to actually define our cylinder. Okay, if I am turning to sapphire here, we also need to define our sphere here. If you click the box, you need to define your box parameters here. Okay, but when you click the surface, you just need to select your surface. Okay, and don't forget to organize your follow line data. Okay, and I'm gonna start from here and here. Okay, let me change my tool, and then we can easily see the different and step over here. I can turn to the 3mm tool here and recalculate my toolpath, and then let me turn back to view and wireframe options, and we're gonna see, oops, that's part, and we're gonna see that's kind of toolpath here. This one and this one. Okay, let me turn back to here and cut pattern of approach, and we can see that this is my step over. I can turn here, it can be 2mm. This is the along step over can be 0.2, and then we can recalculate it, and then we're gonna see that's kind of toolpath here. Can you see that this is the zigzag approach, and with the transaction movement, of course, this is the zigzag, this is not spiral. You can also select the one way or spiral. When you see the toolpath by using the backdrop simulation, actually you can easily organize it. This is the spiral perspective, of course. Okay, so let's turn back to that parameters, that's toolpath here. This is the curve, actually 5-axis. Okay, this is not the multi-surface, this is the curve and toolpath. We can also see the that's toolpath under this condition, and the mill toolpaths, multi-axis, pattern and curve. And I mentioned about the multi-surface. At that point, I'm gonna turn to curve approach. Okay, I can drag here, and then we can also see our toolpaths. I don't want to see that's toolpath. Okay, we can focus on multi-surface toolpath here. Okay, and what else can I say here? This is the tool axis control, and this is okay. Let's turn back to flow parameters here. We can also change our direction here. I'm gonna also mention about that stuff. Anyway, thank you very much. I really appreciated your interest, and if you have any question, don't hesitate to ask me any question. I'm here to answer your question. Thank you very much.